Is it money? Well, you don't need money to go jogging on a Sunday morning in the park. Is it maybe keys? But then, if your family is at home, you don't need keys, they're going to open the door for you. No, the one thing that the majority of people cannot leave their house without is their mobile phone. So, in the next few minutes, let's talk about the past and the present of this very interesting device, and then turn on our imagination and look into the future. The first wireless calls were placed as early as 1930s. Back then, you could use radio signals to connect the speaker to, let's say, passengers on an ocean liner. And in current money, those calls cost something like £60 per minute. Imagine the tariff. But even though those calls were technically wireless, they were still placed from stationary phones. There were two companies that were racing to create the first handheld device. That was Motorola and Bell Labs. And that race ended one morning in 1973, when an executive researcher from Motorola placed the first mobile call in history from a handheld device. He probably needed both hands to hold it, because it weighed something like 2 kilograms. But still, that was the first in history. And do you know who he called? He called an executive researcher in Bell Labs, his main rival. I would have loved to hear what he talked about. But let's fast forward a little bit to the times that we can all remember. I remember, for example, standing somewhere in a crowd, maybe waiting for a bus or queuing up in a show, and then suddenly you'd hear this really annoying music, and you'd look around, and yes, here he is, a proud owner of a mobile phone. He'd take his phone out really slowly and start speaking loudly to make sure everyone hears. That's because, at least in Russia, 15 years ago, mobile phones were a luxury. You didn't need one, you just wanted to have one to show off. And then, the industry started making really gigantic steps forward. So, suddenly, you could send text messages from your phones, you could take pictures with it. And do you remember the first games? Who here doesn't remember Snake? Everyone used to have competitions at school, in the university, in the offices. That, I think, is when the mobile phone mania began. So where did it lead us? Well, today, the world of the mobile phones is completely different. It's all based on the internet, and you have apps for pretty much anything. You can do social networking, you can take pictures and share them with the world, you can find your way around an unfamiliar city with the maps, you could review a restaurant or find somewhere to eat tonight. Anything you want, any how to, where or when is covered. And one of the most important effects, I think, this had on our lives is a complete shift in people's expectations. So now, when you're going to a friend's house for dinner, nobody's going to explain to you how to get there. They're just going to text you the postcode and expect that you find it. And your distant relatives somewhere in Australia are not going to send you letters with the photographs of their kids anymore. No, they're going to text you saying that they've posted some pictures on Facebook. What do you think? And of course you'd be expected to text back pretty much immediately saying how cute their new baby is, irrespectively of whether or not you're close to your computer. So we're now expected to be connected 24/7. And being a fan of gadgets, I like to imagine what it could be like, what they would look like in 3 to 5 years' time. What about 10? What about 50 years? Well, looking into a distant future, let's turn on our imagination for a bit. I would think that people would probably do away with having to hold something in their hands. They would probably have chips installed in their hands, or maybe ears, maybe even their heads. Because even now, you can control your mobile phones with your voice. So why not control it with your thought? Imagine thinking a name of a person you want to contact, then thinking through the message that you want to send to them, and that message gets played straight into their head. It sounds fascinating. But then you can imagine waking up early on a Saturday morning with the voice of your beloved partner ringing in your head, asking if you've taken the beans out yet. That's a scary thought. Look the not-so-distant future, I just can't wait to see what else they will invent, how else they will try to structure this device to make our lives easier, to cover every need that we imagine we have, and maybe create new needs to be covered by the subsequent models. So, having gone through this short journey through the past, the present, and the future of this interesting device that's slowly taking over the world, ask yourself this: has it been successful in taking over your life? Can you live without it? Thank you.